All right.
Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility. We have Kevin Mills, and this guy, I feel really fortunate that I actually connected with him. It was through Facebook of all places. He's been a business owner for over 40 years. He's an author. He's developed this whole framework that helps people. It's called EmpowerX. And then also, he's a consultant on top of owning other businesses and real estate deals. And he's consulted names like Mercedes and Porsche. Who else have you consulted? The list was too long for me to remember.
Yeah, it's a long list. KPMG, BMW America, Volkswagen Auto Group, lots of different companies, not just vehicle manufacturers, but a lot of real estate companies. Done programs for Keller Williams, for Remax, for Century 21. It's a long list, as you can tell, because I think you're looking at my website right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So, when you were a little kid, what was your first entry point into business?
I started off when I was like 10, 11, 12 with a paper route
Okay.
and shoveling sidewalks in the wintertime and walking around the neighborhood with a lawnmower in the summertime and mowing lawns and edging sidewalks and whatever it was. Uh, Probably dating myself here, but back in the old days, there was a show called Newhart, and they had three brothers on there. They were Larry, Daryl, and Daryl. And they would come in and introduce themselves, and they would say, "We'll do anything for a buck." And that was pretty much me. I would walk around, I'd look for bottles to pick up and everything else. And I didn't grow up poor. I just felt like I always wanted money in my pocket. And
Mm.
my parents were the type of people that hand it to me. My parents, they said, yeah, you can get an allowance, but my allowance was never enough for what I wanted to do. Maybe I didn't grow up poor because my parents were cheap. I don't know. But it was never enough for what I wanted to do. So I was out collecting bottles to get those dimes. I was, pushing lawnmowers, pushing snow. I couldn't wait for it to snow because I had the regular people who I'd go out and I know that they would, pay me to shovel their sidewalks and delivered newspapers for years. Got bit by a couple of dogs and I don't know, the start of the drive, I guess.
I love that. And as a little kid, did you envision that was literally shaping the next 40 years of your life?
I didn't. When I was a little kid, that was for money. When I got to high school and I got to college, I knew I wanted to be in business. I pictured myself, sitting in an office, kind of like what I'm doing now, sitting in an office, and at that point, I figured I'd be working for somebody.
Uh-huh.
But as I got older, I realized, I don't want to work for somebody. That might not be such a bad idea, but I want to run the place.
Yeah.
And this was back before internet. I would spend my time when I wasn't doing something else. I would spend my time in the library because we didn't have Google. We didn't have computers that we would search. We actually had a Dewey Decimal System, which was cards in a file. We'd have to look up books. And I would read books on business. I would read books on corporations, and I would order books from other libraries on businesses and corporations. And when I went into college, I would do the same thing. Our college libraries and the still the public libraries.
Hmm.
And I took that knowledge into when I first started doing my own business, which was real estate investing, and expanded it from there and took the income that I was making from real estate after of course being, a crazy college student buying motorcycles and jet skis and boats and extra cars and all kinds of other crazy stuff. I realized
You
I
were
need to
investing in fun
invest.
back then, huh?
Yeah, investing. Yeah, I was investing in my image, I guess, is really what it was. It was more ego. But I started investing it into businesses that were going to be other forms of income, not just real estate. There were other things that I wanted to do that I was interested in that I invested. I started building businesses in things that were related to real estate, but also things that what I call ego businesses, things that I thought were interesting, things that I thought that I wanted to do. So I am very much about real estate and construction. Construction has been a huge part of my business past, but I have ego businesses. I have apparel lines. I have three different companies that make apparel. One's a jeans company, one is a leisure wear company, and one is designer t-shirts. They're just like really crazy graphics. And I am artistic. I actually design all those designs. So it was
Oh,
an
wow.
ego thing for me to actually be able to do that. And then I had just different businesses that I would see it and I'd say, you know what, that looks like it'd be a moneymaker. And I had no idea how to do it. I had no clue. But you
Sure.
know what? It looked like it made money, so I was going to figure out how to do it. And I tell people that all the time. If you want to do something, even if you don't know how to do it, there's somebody out there who does. There's somebody who you can pay to do it. There's somebody you can learn. There's classes you can take. You can go work for somebody else who's in that business to learn how to do it. That's actually how Hershey's learned how to make caramel. He worked for another candy maker to learn their process on how they were making caramel. They were making it with heavy cream versus paraffin, which was what they were using at the time was paraffin. Now everybody uses that heavy cream, but Hershey's went and worked for somebody else for I think it was 3 years to learn that process and master that process. Whatever it takes, if there's something that you have that passion, that drive, do what you need to do in order to make it a reality. Otherwise, you're cheating yourself. The reason you have that passion, the reason you have that desire is it's a gift from God. It's something that He gave you that you're good at, and it gave you that passion, it gave you that drive. If you're not seeing that through, then you're not being the best that you can be.
I love that message. That's powerful. So reading books sounds like it was a major part of forming that direction. Do you have a book or a handful of books that really influenced you?
The one probably that influenced me the most and the one that I recommend all the time is George S. Clason, Richest Man in Babylon.
Mm,
That is timeless. It was written in the 1920s. It was written about ancient Babylon. It is as appropriate today as it was in the 1920s when it was written, and as it was in the setting of ancient Babylon. That, and then as I got older, Bob Kiyosaki, his Rich Dad Poor Dad is a good book. It's eye-opening for a lot of people, and I really like his book called Cashflow Quadrant because it helps you understand the difference between working for money, trading your hours for dollars versus having your dollars working for you. So understanding that cash flow quadrant, and Bob lays it out really well. Uh, those would be the three books that I would recommend for anybody.
yeah, those are all amazing. In fact, Rich Dad Poor Dad was my introduction, my first, I think, business book that I ever read as a kid. It was that one. Absolutely great books. Now, with your business, how did you go from, because it sounded like first investing in real estate, construction, moved into some of the passion projects. How did you end up becoming a consultant?
That happened through my network. I've always been a person who likes the clubs. I like going to country clubs. I like going to business clubs. I like going to social clubs. And through that, I started growing a network. And that was twofold. First of all, I like to go there. I like to eat. I like the whole atmosphere of it. I like meeting people. But it's a great resource for networking. You've got people, you just show up and you've got people that you can join for golf at the country club. You show up and you're at the bar having lunch, and somebody else is sitting next to you, and you strike up a conversation. So I'm very much about networking. That is how I started consulting, is by letting other people know the business that I was in, different things that I had done, and listening to them. What business is it that they're in? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? Usually, when somebody is looking for a consultant, it's not because everything is going well. Usually, when someone's looking for a consultant, it's because they're trying to fix something.
Hmm.
So, listening to them and the issues that they had and providing them some fixes literally while we're talking. But in a situation where you're talking about a larger company and you're talking to a CEO or somebody who's high on the ladder there, it's not a fix that you can apply to them. And they realize that. And they say, you know what? Do you do any consulting? And I say, as a matter of fact, I do. And I give them my consulting card. So applying the solution right there. It's not a holistic solution because you don't have all the information, but
Mhm.
showing that you know and understand what the situation is that they're going through gives them an appreciation, and that opens the door and that lets you in. I was never big on sales. I still don't have a sales team. We don't have a sales team that goes out and finds consulting clients. I feel like if somebody has the need and they see the value in your services, they're going to find a way to write the check. I'm not about that hardcore, you know, wear them down until they're just tired of saying no. So they write a check or they write the smallest check they possibly can and then try to tell you that, it's not working out. I want them to want our services. I want them to come and seek us out. Uh, to me, that's a much better look and it's a much better business model to have those referrals as well.
Gotcha. So from your perspective, of all the businesses you've been a part of, which one's the funnest for you personally?
Real estate and construction.
Hmm.
It is in my blood. Real estate, especially when you're doing real estate deals as an investor, you are always trying to find the next best deal, trying to find the next best way to do it, the next best strategy, trying to think outside of the box. I tell people all the time, if there's no in the box solution, first of all the other investors, they're looking at in the box solutions. So start looking outside the box. If there's no outside the box solution, create your own box and then step outside of that box, to find the
Mm.
solution. Uh, Deconstruct things, look at things from every single different angle. And what I have always lived my life by for real estate investing and for business as well is life by the numbers. If the numbers work, then it's a good deal. And if it doesn't work, it's not a good deal. And I've written about 40 plus books. One of the books that I started writing and never finished, and I really should because I mention it all the time, is called Life by the Numbers. Everything in our entire universe breaks down to numbers. It actually breaks down to ones and zeros, which is binary code. Even the molecules that make up our entire universe break down into ones and zeros. If you can understand that everything in the universe is a mathematical code, then it's no longer overwhelming. You just have to figure out, you may not look at it and see it as the mathematic code, but you look at the different pieces and you see how they're going to fit together and how they could potentially play out. And you've got your formula there. If you look at those pieces and the pieces work, it's a formula that's going to work, regardless of what the actual deal looks like, then do the deal. If you're
Mm.
looking at the pieces and they don't work, doesn't matter how great it is, don't do the deal. Uh, and that it's the same way with life. It's the same way with your relationships. If you are doing something in a relationship and it's not working, you're not getting the results that you'd like out of that relationship, whether it's with your spouse or your friends or your family, then start changing that dynamic. Start refiguring the formula that you're using. Um, so many of us are so stuck in who we think we are as a person, who we need to have as our own identity. We forget that we are a son or a husband or a father. We want to be Kevin. We don't want to be dad. We don't want to be, my husband. We don't want to be whatever it is. We need to understand that we have roles to play. We need to fit into that role. I'm not going to be in a strong relationship if it's all going to be about me. That's not fair to my wife. Now there are people who are in those relationships and for whatever reason maybe it works for them. It's not fair to my wife. I need to be part of her. I need to be not 50% of her. I need to be 100% of our relationship because relationships aren't 50-50. It's 100-100. We both give 100%. And getting past that dynamic where it's always me, 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 and what you think you are um, is very important because whatever you think you are, I promise you, it's not what most other people think you are. Everybody looks at you and they have an opinion of you. Your opinion of what other people think you have are or do is absolutely different. What is important is stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. Stop worrying about being programmed by what culture and society tell you you have to do, what you have to own, where you have to eat, and start thinking about what makes you true to yourself. How did God create you? What purpose did he give you? How can you be authentic? How can you see that through? And to one of the things that I think you do, Jason, which is great, don't forget that we don't live to work. We
Yeah.
work to live. Make sure that what you are doing that's putting money into your pocket is enhancing your life, not taking over your life.
Absolutely. So how did you end up writing 40 plus books? That's normally a career in and of itself.
I started back in the 90s
Mhm.
and I actually enjoy writing. I can write a book in about 2 or 3 days and I rewrite my books often. If you look over my shoulder here, you can see EmpowerX, which is one of the ones I am most proud of. I literally just this week rewrote that book. It is the same concepts, the exact same premises, but I took myself out of the book. I made it all about the reader so that
Mm.
there's absolutely no ego in there. There's no I used to have case studies. I used to have stories about clients that would come to me. I took all of that out and I made it all about the reader. So I will rewrite books all the time. I've got some books like The Ultimate Project Manager. Things change, usually not yearly, but things change. I rewrite that book every year just to keep it current. And I've been writing that book since 1996. And then while I was redoing the EmpowerX book today, I have a number of different books on EmpowerX. I have From Stuck to Unstoppable, which is basically a lot of people feel like they're lazy. And it's not that they're lazy, it's that they just don't have the right purpose. If you have the right purpose, you're not lazy, you're motivated, you're energized. And Jason, I know you see that in your business as well. And then I've got another one that is 12 steps, the 12 steps that Alcoholics Anonymous and AA, Alan, all, those same 12 steps, those are powerful steps. You can use those in your life, but if you are a recovering addict, the 12 steps helps you work with EmpowerX. It works side by side with EmpowerX to give those 12 steps even more power, even more energy. And while I was rewriting the book this week, I thought, you know what? I want to do a book on relationships, on marriages, and the right way to be a spouse, the right way to use EmpowerX principles to be true to who you are and be true to your relationship and find your space and your spot in that relationship so your relationship can be better. And a lot of times that just means, again, getting past your own ego, getting past your own identity as an individual, and understand that you're part of a team and becoming a team player and being a team mate to your spouse.
I love it. Now, earlier you said something that really stuck in my brain, and it was this idea that God's given you these gifts, so quit looking out at the world. How do you see that God fits into this whole business, running business, doing business? How does that fit together?
Well, I mean, if we're looking big picture, we're here because of God. Without God, we're not here. I do a Bible podcast.
Hmm.
We're going through Genesis right now, and we talk about the relevance of the Bible and what we're reading in the Bible to today, to our lives today, to politics, to just current affairs. And we are at the creation story with Adam. God took clay, God took dirt, and he kissed that dirt. He breathed life into it. When he did that, that was his energy. That was part of him. God isn't a person. He's not flesh and bone like us. God is energy. He's pure energy. He took some of his energy and he gave it to us, and that became our soul. And he turned us from dust and dirt into what we are now. When we die, when that energy that is God inside of each and every one of us, when it leaves our body, we turn back into dust, we turn back into dirt, we turn back into ash if they incinerate our bodies. By the very divine intervention that God allowed each one of us to be here, he knew our name before we were even created. Okay. It is powerful to me, but he gave us gifts. He gave us each a set of gifts. And Jason, you might be great at art, and I love art, but my art is not going to be the same as yours. And the other complement of gifts that God gave you is different than the complement of gifts that God gave me, which is going to affect my art. It's going to affect the way I see art, I feel art, I share my art. It's going to change the way I do business. It's going to change a lot of different things because each one of us, we're like a snowflake. God created us each and every one different, and each and every one of our gifts is different. If we aren't doing something where we're using those gifts that God gave us, we are making use of them, then we've basically told God, no, thank you. I don't want it. We're not living to our full potential. God knows who we can be and what we can be, but we have a choice. And without our purpose, without our authenticity, without seeing past what everybody else has told us to do and what everybody else has told us to think, and getting back to who we really are, who we were created to be, and looking at those gifts that God gave us, which motivate us to be who we're going to be. How many people, Jason, do you know growing up that wanted to be maybe an artist or a nurse or a teacher, and their parents told them, no, you need to be a doctor or you need to be a lawyer? That wasn't their purpose. That wasn't their passion. Their passion was art. Their passion was medicine. Their passion was teaching children. But they gave that passion up, the passion that God gave them in order to follow a societal norm that ended up being a societal constraint.
I love it. Yeah, I was listening to Steve Harvey recently, and he was talking about that very thing of like he had a friend who loved mowing lawns as a kid, and they'd all be swimming at the pool, and he's mowing lawns, and he's like, that is his gift. God gave him that passion, and that guy now owns a lawn care company and is very happy in that thing. And I love how you're saying that we don't all have to be trying to achieve the same goal, which is what society tells us. We're all supposed to look a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way, like certain things. And you're saying that's completely wrong. Chase your gifts, let those shine, and that's what really dictates where you should go in life. So thank you for sharing that. What an inspirational message.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So what's your Bible podcast? Why don't you plug that real quick and let people know about that?
It's called Our Bible Today, and we just launched it we actually did a soft launch last year, but we relaunched it from the beginning uh, for 2026.
I love it.
Got multiple different podcasts. In fact, I don't know if you're up for it, but you're welcome to join us on that one as well. And thank you for joining me on Joe for the Soul a couple weeks ago when my face was still healing from skin cancer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. So, how did you feel the call to move into the podcast space?
I have a very faceted resume, and I started doing radio back when I was 16, well, just
Okay.
before I turned 16. Did radio and then did a lot of television, did a lot of television in California, lived in California for 30 years. Television, movies, radio, had a radio show until, actually, a radio show until just recently. A couple years after COVID, I turned it into a podcast.
Hmm.
Uh, so it was a natural progression. I was doing television, I was doing radio, and then when simulcasting came out before podcasting. Some of us might remember that. We were simulcasting our radio shows. We were simulcasting like behind the scenes stuff that we were doing for the TV shows. And then when podcasting came out, I was like, yeah, let's just go ahead and make the simulcast a podcast. And then the podcast turned into something that was a lot more flexible than having to be in front of a microphone every Saturday morning to do the show. So we could record the podcast and we could release it on Saturday. Um, that turned into, you know what, I enjoy this. I want to do a podcast on it. I enjoyed that. I want to do a podcast on it. This is something that is meaningful to me. I want to do a podcast on it. The Bible show, for example, I get a lot out of reading the Bible, and I love hearing other people's take on it. I like to hear how that affects them, how they interpret it, how it's maybe had meaning in their life. Being able to do that in a podcast and share that with other people and have different guests on, people who I don't know, because typically it's people that you know from church or your neighborhood or your circle. But being able to literally invite people from all over the world in and have them share their stories, and everybody interprets things different, because like I said, we're all snowflakes, and I don't mean
Right.
snowflakes in that we're all going to melt, like the media is calling us. We're all snowflakes in that we're unique,
Yeah.
and it's not just our fingerprint. Everything about us is unique. Our eyes, our retinas are different. No two are the same. The prints in our lips are different. And it goes down to literally our DNA. There is nobody that matches our DNA. It's every one of us is unique, and hearing different stories, different takes, how different things influence them, how their life influenced their interpretation of the Bible. I've got a guy, we haven't done a show yet, but he did rap and hip hop, and he felt like that gave him demons. And what
Mm.
saved him from those rap and hip hop demons? And I don't think that rap and hip hop is a negative thing. There are Christian rap and hip hop bands, but apparently he felt like that was a lifestyle that instilled him with his own personal demons. And by getting back to the Bible, by opening the Bible and reading it, it brought him back to where he felt like he wanted to be. And he is now a minister. And another just quick story, back when I was doing a talk show in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
met a guy who is an MMA fighter. He was a very well-known MMA fighter. I'm not going to give his name. He did a show. We kept in touch because we lived in the same area in Los Angeles. And just over time, we ended up losing touch because I moved down to Orange County. And I reconnected with him maybe 10 years ago. And ironically, he moved from Los Angeles. He moved to the city where I grew up in Ohio. And he's this tatted up, you know, MMA fighter that was, very well known at the time.
Uh-huh.
And now he is a pastor. He's a preacher. at a church in the hometown where I grew up. And you just
Wow.
never know the types of people or the types of situations or the types of stories that are going to come into your life. And I believe that we may not always understand the reason for that, but God made that happen for a reason. Um, just go with it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I had a friend growing up and he was the first kid that got into drugs and just lived the party life. And then I see him several years later and he's completely changed everything. He turned his life over to God and I was like, "Oh, what happened here? It's not even the same guy that I knew." And yet God knew all the way along how all that was going to play out. And that was his path. And I love that because that's one of the things that when we look at in the scriptures, we see that there are no two paths that are the same. And we have to be willing to be flexible to what's going to come into our lives and live it with excellence.
You're right, Jason. And we have to be open to knowing that God knows better than we do. The experiences that He gives us for a reason. But we also have to understand that we need to focus on God. Those experiences are about having us come around to Him and about sharing those gifts and sharing those experiences with other people. I used to tell my kids all the time, my older kids, if you want to know how something's going to turn out, if you want to know how to do something, talk to somebody who's been there before. Find somebody older than you who's done it before, and they can tell you exactly what's going to happen. And this, it's the same advice for us, you know.
Mhm.
But too many of us, we don't want to take that advice because we think we know better. We think, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to waste my time because I know how I'm going to make this happen. I know how I'm going to do this. But guess what? There's 20 or 30 people out there who did it before you. Some of them may have been successful, some of them weren't. You want to talk to all of them. You don't want to just talk to the people who were successful, and you don't want to just talk to the people who were failures. You want to find out how people were successful. You want to find out how people fail. And I love that that's what you do with this podcast when talking to different people in business, because life is not all about success. Life is also failures. That is what teaches us. That is what makes us stronger. Failures actually make us more successful.
Absolutely. And going back to the Bible, I don't know, you got me in that mindset today, but like we look at Job, wildly successful, God took it all away to teach Job some stuff and prove Job, and we see story after story after story where people they have the failures along the way and God's already taken care of that, paid for it, but we have the opportunity to learn and grow and develop and become closer, but my favorite I think of all is when Christ says, "Let your light shine to the world." And to me, I'm like, wait, what's my light? And to me, my interpretation of that, and it could be totally wrong, but my interpretation is those gifts that God gave me, I better let those shine because those are the light that I know God instilled inside of me. And I think for too long I did hold those back. And so I'm excited that I get to shine a little bit. And I'm grateful that you mentioned the Bible so we could talk a little in that realm. But I think business does that for people, and people don't even realize it. They're so busy trying to make the money, they forget that the business is giving them an opportunity to shine.
Yeah, and you're not wrong, Jason. You're absolutely right. Our gifts are our light. Remember that song we used to sing when we were kids, "This Little Light of Mine"? You know,
Yep.
we don't want to hide that light. We want to
Right.
share that. And it's not just for our own edification. It's not just for our own purposes, which we need to have as well. God never said, don't be successful. God said, go out, be fruitful, be multiply. He didn't just mean go out and have kids. He meant go out and live life. A lot of people say that it says in the Bible that money is the root of evil. It's not. It says, for the love of money is the root of all
Right.
evil. For the love of anything that is greater than God, that's the root of evil because God says, put nothing above me. So if you love money more than God, yes, that is the root of all evil. God does not want you to be poor. God does not want you to not be able to have the things that make you happy in life. That is why He put us here, is to be happy. Sharing those gifts gets us to that point, but it also helps others get to those points. If we can share our challenges, if we can share our knowledge, which is what consulting is, Jason,
Yeah.
that's what you do as a consultant. Okay. You share your gifts, you share your knowledge, and you make other people's lives better or easier. And you change their lives by sharing your gifts. And that's the gift that God gave you. It's a gift that God gave them in order to be able to know to come and seek you out, to be able to find you.
Exactly. So well said. That's perfect. And yet each of us have that chance in life to go out and see what impact we're going to have and to see where life takes us. So I love that idea of creating because you said it earlier. You've got three clothing companies and it's because you love art. And it's not that you have to have the clothing companies, but it's a means of fulfilling and expanding on some of your talents, right?
Yeah, it's I don't design the actual clothing, like the actual cut and lapels and everything else. I design the patterns that are in the clothes, the
Mhm.
weaves of fabric, the different types of things that make up the clothes. It's traditional styling that you'll find, but uh, different graphic designs that go into the clothing.
So let's jump tracks completely and move back to EmpowerX because we touched on it just a teeny bit, but I don't think we've given anyone enough of a sampling they understand what this powerful framework is. Do you mind sharing with that?
Absolutely. EmpowerX is literally understanding who you were created to be. When we start life, sometime around the second grade, we start listening to other people tell us who we need to be. We stop listening to our own head and our own hearts and start listening to what other people tell us. And we let them program us instead of being authentic and real to who we are and the gifts that God gave us, we let other people influence. And that gets us off track. Those are called limiting beliefs. They limit who we actually feel we can be and who we believe. And when you are living that life, that's a lie. That's not the life that you were created for. And when you live a life, you can lie to anybody else. You can lie to your family, you can lie to your friends, you can lie to the world as a whole, but you can't lie to yourself. You know the truth. And you can't lie to God. God knows the truth. When you tell a lie, things like cortisol, they start to build up. And that we call that the stress hormone. And you're stressed because you're lying. And then when you start building that cortisol up, not only does cortisol come from stress, cortisol also creates stress. So you end up in this endless loop. And your health, your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health, your relationship health, your financial health, all those things, they may seem like they're good, but they could be so much better if you're in alignment with who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. Because when you are living in truth, you you're not worried about being found out as being a fake. Your soul, your mind, your heart, you know that you're doing what is right for you. You know what you're doing is what you were built for. And you eliminate a lot of those things. Well, you eliminate all of them if you continue to live like that. And what I tell people when I do coaching for EmpowerX is start applying what you learned in EmpowerX to just one thing in your life. Put together your SMART goals and choose just one of those SMART goals that you want to imply this to. And it can be relationships, it can be your diet, it can be your gym workout. When you start seeing results from just that one, and you start going through the program and you realize I can see the same results by applying this to my relationships. I can see the same results by applying this to my career. I can see the same results because it's not about this magic fix that somebody says they have or this brain tweak or whatever else. It is about being real. It is
Yeah.
about being honest and understanding that it does not matter what anybody else thinks about you. It only matters what you think about you. So when you understand that, your life is going to get better. And that's why it's called Empower X. The EX stands for exponential. So you're empowering your life exponentially by being true to who you really are.
Wow. So you've literally built a framework around the concept that the truth will set you free and you help people
Absolutely.
move right back into the truth. So cool. So how do people find EmpowerX?
There's a number of different ways you can find EmpowerX. You can go to empower-exlife.com or you can go to empowerex.org. And there's no hyphen in that .org. If you go to empowerx.org, that is set up to where if you have a community group or in church, a synagogue, something like that, if you want to start an EmpowerX group, we will help you do that for free. We'll give you guidelines, we'll give you coaching materials, we'll give you things that you need to do to put together 10 people and help them come together as a group on a weekly basis. And once they start growing and they start understanding and they start realizing the benefits of EmpowerX, one of the pillars of EmpowerX is service. And one of the ways that we can give back is to take that and show other people. So if each one of those 10 people goes out and they start an EmpowerX group of, let's say, 10 people, we're never going to convert the whole world. It's never going to happen. But the more people who we have who are honest, who are true, who are realistic, who are authentic to who they are, the better world we're going to have. And when you start sharing this with people that you know, your world is going to get better because the people around you are going to have that knowledge. They're going to have that ability. They're going to be truthful. They're going to be honest. They're going to be authentic. So it's getting back to exponential. You exponentially change everything that you imply in PowerX to.
Wow. So somebody can, there's books on that you've written on it, right?
Yes.
And then there's the program that someone can join and go through as well. Are those the two main ways of going through
They
EmpowerX?
are, we are launching a coaching program as
Mhm.
well. But if you want to get started for free right now, you can do that from empowerx.org. If you want to just pull out all the stops and find somebody who knows all about EmpowerX, we are training coaches right now for EmpowerX with additional materials, not just what's on empowerx.org, additional materials, letting them be able to just apply everything inside and out and not just the EmpowerX program. We've got other things, like I said, layered into that. So, goal setting using the EmpowerX program, 12 steps using the EmpowerX program. We have some EmpowerX children's books that we're writing right now. I've got an EmpowerX book on parenting that I haven't published yet, but it's already ready to go. Applying what you know through EmpowerX and what you learn through EmpowerX to parenting, to your children, to not limiting their beliefs. So if you are an active part of your young child's life where you're encouraging them to do the things that they like to do and not telling them, no, you need to be a doctor, no, you need to be a lawyer, no, you need to do something else because of this. Let them be them. Let them explore their gifts, put your nurture into their nature. So their nature is what God gave them. Your nurture is saying, you know what? If you love dance, let me make sure that you go to dance lessons. If you love horseback riding, let me make sure that you take horseback riding lessons. So being that parent that's going to raise a child who is not going to have to get past as many limiting beliefs, they understand because they were given that nurture in order to be whatever you want to call them, an EmpowerX kid, I guess.
Awesome. This has been such a powerful conversation. I would love it if you would share, how do people connect with you? How do they follow you? What are all of the different podcasts and things? What's that list? How do people connect?
All right. So on mostly you can find it on YouTube, but they're on all the other sites as well, and even TikTok. But you can find me on YouTube at EmpowerX. You can also follow YouTube for, let me think of these, Joe for the Soul, which is a show that you did with me, Jason.
Mhm.
There is Really Kevin, and you can go to reallyKevin.com to find that. You can, I know I'm missing some, but you could do that. You could also send me an email to kevin@kevinmillsnow.com. That's kevin@kevinmillsnow.com. You can go to kevinmills.com and you can see more about what it is that I do. You can also go to the bookshelf tab. There's a tab on bookshelf where there's a number of books that mostly motivational. Some of them are business and wealth building that I've written that you can also click on and order through Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or wherever. And if you happen to be in a Barnes and Nobles or someplace like that, look for the book. I have people call me all the time. I found your book at Barnes and Nobles, or I found your book at such and such bookstore. So keep an eye out for it, and maybe you'll find it there, and you don't have to wait a couple of days for them to send it to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking your time to really let your light shine and share all this great message. And thank you also for building EmpowerX that can help push this world to be a better place.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you for having me. It was